Obviously no nuns today. Okay. You're not happy with what? Okay. 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 So what we should do, we'll do the chanting first, and then after the chanting, do the ordination afterwards. Where is he? Has he run away? Is he still here?
Has he run away?
Oh, he's still there, okay. You can just put the gifts on a nice chair somewhere. You don't have to keep holding it. We'll do your ordination after the chanting today. And then afterwards we give a talk. Is that okay? Yeah. Frank?
Frank Chu?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. What is he doing?
And family?
I think it's still on the hand, actually.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get started then. I'll light the candles first, and then we can do the chanting. It actually does look much nicer.
Especially here, isn't it?
Yeah. Please bow. And the chanting is for, if I miss anybody out, please let me know. For Kirapong Jalan, for good rebirth. Klaus, how do you pronounce the surname? Hanslingen, and daughter Lisa. For Ratan Barua, Udayon Barua and family, for vision and health. Priya Barua, Priya Barua, Juni Barua, Palash Barua, Mukta Barua, Nayan Barua, for well-being. For Lal and Karu, Peng and Chi Wei. For Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, for to enjoy, so he can overcome the pain of chronic headaches. Ayachanda series, stomach problems, and Ayachanda series dad who has leukemia, suffering. Frank Chu and his family for their success at work. For Aung San Suu Kyi, Sabrina Tiagian family well-being and happiness. Winsome Jackson for good health. Menaka, Pushpa Rama's elderly sister. Pushpa Rama. Tandra Barua for good health in hospital. Meng and Jim Lim. Christy for relief from seizures and good health. Lucy Salgado for freedom from seizures, comfort and peace. Karin Hofstetter for relief from asthma and to provide good health. Irene Bunn for freedom from breast cancer. Stephen Dodd, good health and protection from pneumonia and UTI. Melissa Constanzo, good health and protection from urinary tract infection. Carrie Andrew for success in her new job. Kim Boone, Catherine, Alvin and Wisaka for well-being, ease and happiness. Chen Wenyi, quick recovery from 4th stage pancreatic cancer. Cara Lachelle Boyster, quick recovery from cancer and relief from pain. Mr. Tek Siang Pang passed away yesterday for a good rebirth. Sriyani Udamula, that's Anusha's auntie who passed away this morning, so it's a good rebirth. Yuzu the dog for successful cancer treatment. That's Anusha's dog, isn't it? Juicy Asunta for happiness and well-being. Abel Cyril Wong to be vacated safely back to WA from the earth. It's a gate site in Lapu-Lapu city. Does that make sense?
No sense at all.
In the Philippines, Cebu. So Cebu is far with other weak and sick and elderly victims. Don Green passed away more than 2 years ago. Annie Erickson from Flinders Island to recover well and come to Perth soon. May all other beings, seen and unseen, be safe and happy, alive and deceased, parents. We do the 5 protections after the main chanting. Is there any other persons we missed out? Sorry, I can't hear that.
The victims at Bondi Beach who were shot,
It's very good. Victims of Bondi Beach, and for all other disasters, either man-made, human being made, or just accidental. May all beings be happy and at peace. Okay, let's do the first half of the house chanting. Is that good? Or the second half?
First half is better.
Good, okay.
We know it.
The third half is really good.
Okay. Is there anyone else I missed out? Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yocha kuma mohamala pakato samma vabuddho sugato vimoto mara sapasa vinimochayanto pape sikema janatang vinaya buddhang varantam sirasana mamilo kasanata chavinayaka chatan tejasa tejayasi dihotu sa ตรายะชาวินาสเมนตุธัมโมทัจโจโยวิยทัสสะสัทธุตาเสสิโลคัสสวิสุทธิมากังนิยานิโกธัมมะทวัสสะตาลิสัทธาวะโหสันติคโรสุจิโนธัมมังวรันตังศิรสานามามิโมหะปะทาลังอุปสันตตาหังทันเตจะสาเตจายสิทธิโหทุสาบันตรายะชาวินาสเมนทุสาตัมมเสนาสุขตานุโกโยโลกัสสะปะปุปักขิเลสเจตาสันโตสยังสันตินิโยจะโกจะสวากาตธัมมะวิธิทังคโรติสังฆังวรันตังศิรสานามามิปุตตะนุปุตตังสัมมาสีลทิฏฐิทันเตจะสาเตจายสิทธิโหทุสาปันตรายะชาวินาสเมนตุนะโมอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะมะเหสิโนนะโมอุตตมะธัมมะสัสสวากาทเสวะเทนิดานะโมมหาสังฆัสสะปิวิสุทธัสสิลทิฏฐิโนนะโมโอมาทายะราดาสรัตนาทายาสัสสะดุกังนะโมอุมาคาติตาสัทธาสวัตุทายาสัพพินะโมกาลาภะภาเวนะวิกาจันทุปาทวะนะโมกาลานุวะเวนะสุวัติโหตุสัพพตานะโมกาลาสเทเจนะวิติหิโหมิเทชวะเสวนาชปาลานะปันดิตานันชเสวนาปูจาชปูชนียานะเอตังมังกาลมุตตมังปฏิรูปเดสวาโสชปูเบจักตะปุญญาตาอัตตสัมมาปณิทิจเอตัมมังกาลมุตตมังปาหุสัจจันชสิปัญชวินโยจัสสุสิกิโตสุภาสิทาชยาวาจาเอตัมมังกาลมุตตมังมาตาปิตุอุปาทานังพุทธดาราสสังฆโหอนาคุลาสกามันตะเอตัมมังกาลมุตตมังดานัญชดามจริยาชยาตกานัญชสังฆโหอนาวาจานิกามานิเอตัมมังกาลมุตตมังอาราธิวิราธิปาปามาจปานาจสัญญโมอาภมาโดจดาเมสุเอตัมมังกาลมุตตมังกาลโวจนิวาโตจะสันตุติจักตัญยุตากาเลนะ
ธัมมาสวนังเอตังมังคลมุตตมังคันธิจะโสวัชสัตตาสมนานันชตาสนะกาเลนะธัมมัสสกาจาเอตังมังคลมุตตมังทัพโพชะพรหมจริยาจาริยสัจจานตัสสนะนิบานัสสัจจิกิริยาจาเอตังมังคลมุตตมังพุทธัสสะโลกตัมเมหิจิตังยัสสนะกัมปติยโสกังวิราจังเขมะเอตังมังคลมุตตมังเอตาทิสานิคาทวานัสสะปัตถมปราจิตาสัพพตโสติกาจันทิทันเทสัมังคลมุตตมันติยังกินชีวิตทางอิตวาหุดังวาสาเกสุวายะรัตนังปณิตานาโนสมังอาติตตากเทนะอิดัมภิปุเตรัตนังปณิตาเอเตนะสัจเจนะสุวัตติโหตุกายังวิรากังอมตังปณิตังยตาจักขาสักขมุนีสมาหิโตนาเทนะธัมเมนะสมาธิกินสีดัมปิดัมเมรัตนังปณิตังเอเตนะสัจเจนะสุวัตติโหตุยังพุทธเสโตปริวานายิสุจิงสมาธิมานันตริกัญญมาอุสมาธินาเตนะสมุนาวิจติดัมปิดัมเมรัตนังปณิตังเอเตนะสัจเจนะสุวัตติโหตุเยภูกะลาอาทัสสะตังปัสสะทะชัตตาริเอตานิยุกานิโหนติเทดาคิเนยะสุกตัสสะสาวกะเอเตสุตินานิมหาปลาอิดัมปิสังเกรัตนังปณิตังเอเตนะสัจเจนะสุวัตติโหตุเยสุปยุตตมนัสสะตัลเหนะนิกามิโนโกธรรมสาสนังพิเทภาทิภาตาอมตังวิกายลาตามุดานิพุติงปุญจมานะอิดัมปิสังเกรัตนังปณิตังเอเตนะสัจเจนะสุวัตติโหตุเอนังปุรานังนาวังนาทิสังภวังวิราตจิตายาทิเคภวัสมิเทขีนาปิจาอวิรุลิจันดานิบันติธีรายะทายังปฏิโปอิดัมปิสังเกรัตนังปณิตังเอเทนะสัจเจนะสุวัตติโหตุเมทัญชะสัพพโลกาสมิงมานะสัมภาวะเยอปริมาณังอุดังอตุสัตติริยัญชะสัมปาดาอเวรังอสัพพะตังทิทัญชะรังนิสิโนวะสยานโนวะยาวะทะสวิกัตมิโด Etang sating aditeya pramameta viharan idama uditin shanupagama silavadasanena sampano kame suvineya geda nahi jatu gabaseya punareti iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijacharana sampano sugato lokavidu anutaro purisa dhamma saratisa tadeva manusanang buddho bhagavati sawakato bhagavata dhammo sanditiko akaliko ehipasiko opanaiko pacatang veditavo vinyuhiti supatipano bhagavato sawaka sangho ujupatipano bhagavato sawaka sangho yaya patipano bhagavato sawaka sangho samiti patipano bhagavato sawaka sangho yadidang chattari purisa yugani atta purisa pugala esa bhagavato sawaka sangho ahuneyo pahuneyo dakineyo anjali karaniyo anutara punya ketang lokasati nati me saranang anyang buddho me saranang vara etena sacha vajena sotite otu sabada nati me saranang anyang dhammo me saranang vara etena sacha vajena sotite otu sabada nati me saranang anyang sangho me saranang vara etena sacha vajena sotite hotu sabada. We're now going to chant the protection of the quail for the fire protection of Bodhinyana Monastery and the Jhana Grove, and also Lot 42. With the Jhana Grove, it also includes Hermit Hill and New Yoga Land, and also Dhammasara Nuns Monastery, Santi Monastery, Bodhinyana Great Southern, West, Great Southwestern, Great Southern. Anyway, Buddha Dhamma. Oh, West Buddha Dhamma? What Buddha Dhamma? Okay. Kusala Vihara, Dhammarama, Yana, NBN, and Mettavihari. Did I miss any out? Santi, we did Santi, yes. We've mentioned that. Was it? I thought it was. No, it wasn't, thank you. Santi as well. And also the Lumia, where Venerable Ajahn Nirodha was staying. So the quail's protection. Atiloke sila kuno sajang soche yanudaya
Tena sa chena kaha misa shakiriya manutara awa chitwa dhammapala saritva upakejine sachapalam awasaya sachakiriya akasaha santipaka apatana santipada avanchana mata pita chanikanta jata vedapati kama sahasache kate maya mahapajalito siki Vaje siso lasakari sani udakang patwa yata siki sachena me samonati esame sachaparamiti. Excellent. So now we have our candidate. Would you like to please get ready and come up? Candidate still there? Please come.
Brian, where are you?
He's in back there. No, that's nice.
Monastic plan for Brian?
Yes. Come a bit closer. Okay.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Acharye pamadena dvatiyena khatam samang aparatam kamathame bante. Acharye pamadena dvatiyena khatam samang aparatam kamathame bante. Acharye pamadena dvatiyena khatam samang aparatam kamathame bante.
You don't talk to the tray now. Before I forgive you, I have a look to see what's on the tray. Aham kamami tayapi me kamitabam. Say kamami bante.
Kamami bante.
Nati me savananganyang puto dhammo sangho me savanamaran. Etena sachawajena sotite hoti sabada. Say sadhu.
Sadhu.
And now, you ask for the chief refugees and 8 precepts.
Aham bante. Tisaranena saha athasilani yachami. Dudiyampi aham bante. Tisaranena saha athasilani yachami. Tadiyampi aham bante. Tisaranena saha athasilani yachami.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami.
Tatiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami.
Tadiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami.
Tatiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami.
Tadiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami.
Tatiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami.
Tadiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami.
Ti Saranagamanang Nititan. Is it
Amapanti.
Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Anatipata Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
Adinadana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Adina Dana Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
Abrahmacharya Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Abrahmacharya Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
Musawada Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Musawada Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
Sura Meraya Majjapamadhatana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Sura Miraya Majjapamadhatana Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
Vikala Bhojana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Vikala Bhojana Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
Nacha Gita Vadita Visuka Dasana Mala Ganda Vile Panadharana Mandana Vibhusanatana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Nacha Gita Vadita Visuka Dasana Mala Ganda Vipilana Dharana Mandana Vibhusana Tatana Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
Uchasayana Mahasayana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Uchasayana Mahasayana Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
Imani Atta Sikkhapadani Silena Sukating Yanti Silena Bhoga Sampada Silena Niputing Yanti Tasma Silang Visodaye. Very good. See, done it.
Silena Samadhi Sampada. Silena Samadhi Sampada instead of Bhoga Sampada.
Yeah, because seriously, okay.
No, it's not again.
Silena Samadhi Sampada. Okay. I just following the traditions.
It's a nice word.
Yeah, okay. Okay, next time. Excellent. So now we do the chants. So atalado sukito virulho bodasasane arogyo sukito hori sahasa behiyatibi. So atalado sukito virulho bodasasane arogyo sukito hori sahasa behiyatibi. So atalado sukito virulho bodasasane arogyo sukito hori sahasa behiyatibi. So you're now a full anagarika here. Well done. So hopefully, because you're an anagarika here, please remember the status before Christmas. And then, so next year, as a Christmas present, we can give you a novice ordination. Good idea?
Good idea.
Yeah, so please behave. Excellent. Excellent.
Well done, Brian.
Yes, wonderful. And thank you for your service so far. You're a very pleasant anagarika to deal with. Okay. You get all of that? Okay. So now we give a talk. know what I'm going to talk about?
Sorry?
You know what I'm going to talk about?
No? Interesting.
Of course. About tablets. So it's only tech I know.
Modern technology.
No. Excellent. Can that be heard in the back?
Yes.
Can it be heard in the front? Excellent. So anyway, do the Namo Tassa first. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammāṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. So for the talk this evening, as you all know, I just make up the titles of the talk just the evening before. And so because somebody was talking to me about the request to discuss Yoniso Manasikara, so I'm going to give my take on that, and also to why that I interpret it in the way which I do. Yoniso Manasikara, or Manasikara, whichever you pronounce it like. But anyway, that term is a very important term, as you may all know. That is the term, one of the two qualities which they say, or the Buddha said, are important to become a stream winner. If you don't know exactly what it means, then you may get confused. And so because of that, I want to discuss, or not discuss, but to explain how I understand Yoniso Manasikara in the context of the path to becoming a stream winner. But first of all, that I've mentioned many times, even the word Yoniso. The word yoni does mean like a womb, where a place comes from, its origin, its source. And I kind of like that idea of yoniso. It's looking at phenomena, getting insight, not into what things are, as much as where they come from, the whys. Now that's W-H-Y. Why? Now, why does we have suffering? Why do we find it enjoyable to renounce, of all things? Like even for Brian, sometimes people ask you, why did you become an anagarika? The anagarika ceremony, we instituted that many years ago to say that you're not just an 8 preceptor, you're an 8 preceptor who is starting the first stages of monastic life in order to become the samanera, and a samanera is where the monastic life really begins. But we make a difference between those anagarikas who are in this monastery training to be a samanera, and of course those who just keep 8 precepts, as a resolution, or once a week, or whatever, You keep it basically for a whole year and then test out yourself in monastic life, and hopefully you make it through and then can take on the novice ordination. But even the novice ordination, why? Why do you have to do a novice ordination in order to get deeper into this monastic life, into the life of renunciation? I always liked it when I go overseas, in places like Singapore and Malaysia. They would always call that, are you ready to renounce if you want to become a monk or a nun or a novice? The idea of renunciation is right there at the heart of why. Why do we want to do that? One story which I explained to somebody just very recently when they wanted to do a podcast with me. What's the point of becoming a monk or a nun? And the story was that there was a king who was coming back from some training of his soldiers, and they passed these two mango trees. One mango tree was such a beautiful tree, had heaps and heaps of mangoes, and next to it was another tree which was barren, had no mangoes at all. And the king thought, what's the use of that tree with no mangoes? And he looked at the tree with lots of mangoes and thought, I would just go back to the palace, get changed, and come out to take some of these mangoes, which is what he did. But after he got changed and went back to that mango tree, which was so many delicious mangoes, he noticed that his soldiers hadn't waited to get changed. They had taken all of those mangoes off that tree. They destroyed many branches and twigs, and so many leaves lay on the ground. That poor tree, which once looked so healthy with lots of mangoes, was almost destroyed. And the other tree, which had no mangoes at all, just beautiful leaves and branches, was left alone, unhurt, undamaged. And when he understood the why towards that, why does one mango tree get destroyed and the other mango tree just gets left alone? And it's just because of the riches, the wealth, the delicious mangoes. To get them, other people destroy you. That was why that mango tree with no mangoes at all was safe and left unharmed. And he said because of that, that's why he renounced being a king. And he went off to become a monk somewhere, or a hermit somewhere, I cannot remember which. But nevertheless, the lifestyle was the same. He renounced. And I still remember one of the best things which I did when I went to Vietnam the very first time on a conference. They took me to Ha Long Bay. It's supposed to be the place to go and see. But anyway, on the way back, they also took me to this group of mountains, and we went up as far as we could with a car and then up in one of these cable cars. And at the top of that mountain there was a Buddhist shrine, a very tiny temple, and that was where one of the kings in the north of Vietnam renounced when he realized just how dangerous it is to be a king and have so much stuff which other people want. And so he went up in these mountains, was quite remote, and lived the rest of his life up there in peace. That renunciation. Why? For the peace, for the stillness, and there's something else which comes after that, which I'll make known in a moment. You already know, of course. So this is one of the reasons why renunciation is a way to find peace. How come? Why? It is because renunciants have more opportunity to actually live on retreats. Not just to live on retreats in your huts or in a retreat center. It's acceptable to do that. And because it's acceptable to do that, you find that there's much support for you to do retreats. Of course, there's also a lot of work sometimes in this monastery. Sometimes talking to people. Somebody mentioned today, or just talking earlier, that the sign which we had at the junction between Southwest Highway and Kingsbury Drive, pointing to this monastery, has disappeared quite a long time ago. And they asked me, why don't we get a new sign? And I said, because we're renunciants. In other words, isn't it kind of wonderful that we don't announce our presence here? Isn't it kind of wonderful that some people, unless they put the effort in, or they've known us for a while, don't know where we are? That's why also many years ago, you know this story, I'm going to repeat it, that somebody, when we were building this monastery, offered 50,000 Australian dollars to build a stupa. And that was almost 40 years ago. And so, we could do a lot of building with $50,000. And so, we thought, let's get the other buildings up first of all. And then when it came time to build a stupa, there was a number of monks, including myself, who were saying, what do we need a stupa for? We already have relics in here. Why do we need a stupa? It will attract many, many, many more people. But is that the purpose of a forest monastery? To attract many, many lay people who will disturb the monastic community, making noise, singing Christmas songs. You know who that was today? You can't say no to them. So sometimes we try to keep things quiet and peaceful. So that's why I thought, no, we don't need a sign. They can find a way if they really need to. And that means that there is that sense of letting go of the world and moving away from it. Of course, you have to find a balance to get enough funds to pay the bills and enough food to feed the monks here, and the novices, and the anagarikas, and all the lay people who help out. But I think you all know that we usually get plenty of food to feed everybody here, which is kind of amazing. To me, that still kind of boggles my mind. It makes me inspired that even though we have many different people with many different tastes of food, we still manage to get enough for everybody here. And the food which can keep you going. And it's a beautiful thing, that's just the way we have that support. Not because we want to attract that support, but because we are renunciants. That's why we renounce, for the sake of peace. And sometimes, I remember in those early days, during the range retreat, we still would go on silent retreats ourselves. And I remember once, one early range retreat here, Ajahn Chakra, who's my senior, and myself, we went on retreat at the same time. And we only had a couple more monks here looking after the shop, and they came to us and said, can one of you come off retreat? Simply because no one was coming. They knew Ajahn Chakra, they knew myself, and that gave them confidence to keep coming. So it was a good lesson for me. But then again, later on, that whenever I went on retreat for a long time, sometimes I thought, my goodness, I'm not doing my duty. That 3-month retreat, 6 months retreat which I did, still you had plenty of food. I was very happy about that, because once you told them what we were doing, or what I was doing, then of course they were very inspired. If you are a renunciant and you are renouncing, of course then people really enjoy that. and they love to support you. It's inspiring. So many things in the world you have to pay for. So many things in the world they want to find some financial advantage for, because we don't do that. And that kind of inspires people, how well we do, even though we don't charge. So anyway, that's an example just of what renunciation is and why. Why did I mention that? It was because also the Anagarika ordination, I wanted to keep this talk relevant to what happens. But it's also, you can understand why you inquire, and once you understand what's going on, it makes it so much easier to practice like that and to let people know, and to know it's inspirational, which means that you're doing an investigation into why. What's the cause of this? And when I kind of started contemplating Yonisamanasikara, it's basically, I loved that because that gave me so much inspiration of just the path by which I came to be a monk. A couple of people were asking me that. I thought it was a marvelous question. What was your real first inspiration to become a Buddhist even? And it was the fact that I was so fascinated by the scientific inquiry. The scientific inquiry was like, why? And where did this come from? Why is there such a thing as electricity? What is the origin of this universe? What is this human body? How does it work? What is this brain? What is this mind? What are things like spirits and ghosts? That was such an important part of the inquiry into the nature of this existence. It was going back to the source of things, the why, what causes it. And that causality is kind of what I always took as the essence of Yonisamanasikara. It's not coming from an individual deciding through the willpower whether it's a God or whether it's a human being or any other being in this universe. It's beyond that. It's a cause and effect. Why is it that some people get sick and other people don't get sick? Can you just excuse that by just saying one word, karma? Or is it something more than that, a cause and effect? That's one of the reasons why, when I was a young monk, I always go back on these, when I was a young monk, I sort of made a resolution. And the reason was because I would sit at what bar America what? What bar America what? You know where that was? That was Bungwai. That was Ajahn Chah's first name for it. Because all the monks there were from America, and I was the only non-American there. From England. But anyway, once there was more monks came, Canadian monks and French monks, then it became known as, what bar Nana Chat, many lands. But nevertheless, not every morning, but most mornings, the monks, when we would meet, and after the morning meeting, then one of the monks would say, "Oh, I was on the toilet all night, on the can, I had diarrhea." And the next one would say, "Yeah, so did I." And the next one, "Yeah, me too." And the next one said, "Yes, me too." And I had to say something because there's only 6 or 7 monks there at the beginning. And so I said, "Not me." I think that's when they first started not liking me. And one of the reasons was when I heard that so many of the monks, had sicknesses, I made a resolution. I wasn't doing that out of pride. I just wanted to know, would it work? Would it work if I did an experiment to make a resolution, I'm not going to get sick, and see what happens? And just a resolution. I was reasonably healthy beforehand, and I made a resolution. It kind of worked for a year. And that was kind of weird. what is the cause of sickness? It's also one of the reasons why you learnt about samadhi, the stillness. What's the cause of it? How can you examine this phenomena called samadhi and know how it works, where it comes from, why people get really, really still? And of course, that's why I used to experiment. As a student, it kind of shocked me. I admit this, that I was not doing anything. I was on a retreat, okay, fair enough. But my precepts weren't that perfect. But nevertheless, you had a good teacher who taught you how to let go. Renounce. Not just renounce, your inclinations to break sort of precepts, the inclinations to want things, but just to stay so long in your room, just meditating, that the mind got very powerful, very peaceful, and blissed out. That was a shock. It's not what I expected. But nevertheless, when you have experiences, then you can investigate. You get answers to questions. Why? You go to the source. And that's also where you got all these wonderful insights into the nature of how I worked. Both physically, but most important of those insights into why was insights into the will. And that's, what a lot of times, I was not under my own control. I said this story many times. I say it again. I keep on repeating the same things. But this is an interesting story. When I was on duty in Nolamara Center, when we moved from Magnolia Street to Nolamara Center, then one morning, just after a very simple breakfast. In those days, breakfast was so simple. And so I had a simple breakfast and had some, what they call these days, some time to kill, some free time. And so I was just looking through on a Saturday morning in the library for the cassette tapes of talks which I had given. And it just took my attention, the talk which I'd given the night before at the Nolamara Center. I was in the community hall. We didn't have the Dhamma hall that we have these days now. In the community hall, it's a cassette tape. It was on exactly the same subject which I'd given a talk on the night before. And I wanted to compare them, to see just how similar they were. And that's when I got goosebumps, because there was whole paragraphs which were word for word of what I said about a year before. And I didn't realize. I thought, how could that happen? The talk I gave the night before, it was just like I give every talk here. What did I say last year? What did I say? I've got to say the same again. It was just automatic. I'd brainwashed myself. And I gave the talk almost the same words, let alone the same subjects. And that was spooky. That's when you started to doubt this thing which we call the will. Am I really in control? Do I really decide what is going to happen, what I'm going to do? And the answer, of course, is no, you don't. That's kind of spooky. But I was confident enough to actually to believe evidence, even if it is spooky. And this is where you go to the cause of things. Why did I say that word in that way, or that idea in that way? And then there's also one of the talks I gave here many years ago, and that was when Ajahn Sujata was here, and he was doing so much of the work of recording, and also once he had the the talk recorded, he'd always give it a title. And this particular talk, I don't know how many years it was titled, Why Ajahn Brahm Tells Bad Jokes. I was not offended at all because it had a meaning behind that saying, why does Ajahn Brahm say bad jokes? Or silly jokes. Okay, how come you remember that title? Why? The Yonisimanasikara, he was applying that, and it was because I'd grown up with my father who told bad jokes. And I was influenced by people like Ajahn Chah who told bad jokes. And I say that, and it was true. He told very silly jokes. The one which he told, which was one of the worst, he said, in the villages in the northeast of Thailand, you know how it was the water buffalo would be underneath, and you go up the stairs, and then you have this, basically the the common room, and the little rooms off that common room where the people would actually sleep at night. And anyhow, a burglar, a very poor man, went up to the top, when no one was around. He was very careful. And then he didn't know what to take, but he did see some, they called it Samoa, which were pickled. And so he ate a few of those. And the Samoas, I was told they were medicinal and they were allowed to eat in the afternoon or the evening. One evening I did eat one. It was offered to the monks. Never again. I was on the toilet all night. I was in Thailand. I learned my lesson. But this guy didn't know what the Samoa did. And so he started to feel his stomach starting to move. And this is Ajahn Chah told his story. Okay, it's not my story. So don't blame me. And anyway, and then he heard somebody come up the stairs. So he needed to hide somewhere. So he hid in the roof cavity. There was lots of... You're already laughing, you haven't even got to the punchline yet. He hid in the roof cavity, and then he was really getting desperate to go to a toilet. So he just, what can I do? He'd get caught. He was a burglar, he'd get into big trouble. So he saw a rag, on one of the rafters. So he shoved that in his backside to stop anything coming out. And almost the same time, the owner of the house had just come up, started kind of sniffing a bit. He had some hay fever, and he needed to wipe his nose. So the only thing he thought of doing, there's a rag hanging down from one of the rafters. He pulled that rag, and you know what happened next. That was Ajahn Chah's story. I've been brought up like this. What can you expect? But I thought it was useful because many times you'd see other people give talks. And when other people gave their talks, they were very good talks, highly informative. But then people actually fell asleep. They never paid any attention at all. But I saw that when you tell a funny story, and people ask, what did he talk about last night? What you remember is Ajahn Chah's joke. So it gets an idea in your mind. It's much easier to give a point if it's kind of humorous. So you're asking about where things come from, why? And especially the causality. What's the reason for it? Where does it come from? And the idea of a science, why do these things happen? Even just when I was a kid, how many stars are there in the universe? How can you find out? You remember all these wonderful stories, why? Why there's only so many stars? And I don't know how many of you have ever studied astrophysics. There is a wonderful sort of mathematical theory which says there can never be an infinite number of stars in the universe. The universe has to be a limited number of stars and galaxies. And when I read that, I thought, wow, I could never expect you could actually prove it. I'm not joking. Is it Obler's paradox? I think it was, unless I'm mixing up with another famous astrophysicist. But it made so much of a sense that if there's only so much, why? You're always finding causality. Why? And that was important for me to understand that. And that's exactly kind of what Yoniso Manasikara is. Finding out why. And why do I decide to do stupid things? I've got no choice. I kind of like that idea. That's why one of the reasons why you can't blame anybody. Why do people do stuff? That's one of the reasons why, when I tell people about my father being abused by his father physically, and just the abuse he had to witness when my grandfather in Liverpool just came and whipped anybody in front of him because he was drunk, especially my grandma, who I never got to know. My brother, he did actually do some research and found both of my grandparents, they died during the Second World War, but not of bombings, just of typhoid. So they had a terrible life. But nevertheless, my father would always be so kind. It was because of the pain which he had experienced and seen. Because I remember him telling me that, again, if ever I have children, he decided, and it was almost, unlikely the way he was brought up, if ever I have children, I will never beat them. And he never could. Because every time, in those days, they get a little slipper to spank the kids. You got a slipper, those slippers was just what you wore. And he'd come into the bedroom where my brother and I had been fighting or something, making a noise, but he couldn't do anything. He just left the slipper alone. And that kind of was surprising to me. But it meant that's why I am like that. I will never ever punish any of you, even if I could. It's one of the reasons why that Anagarika, who ate in the evening and midnight, and he confessed to me and said, I've done a terrible thing. And I said, okay, thank you for letting me know. You're free now. That's one of the best ways. Admit what you've done, take the forgiveness and learn from it. Never punish yourself for it. And eventually he said, no, that's not good enough. I need some punishment. And of course, what happened next? I said, okay, I've been reading a book about the early history of Australia, where any person who made a crime here got the whip. So I said, okay, if you want a punishment, I'll give you a traditional Australian punishment, 50 strokes of the cat. And this guy knew nothing about Buddhism. He thought I'd actually do that. He went white. And I told him what 50 strokes of the cat meant. We had 2 cats at that time. Find one of them, put it on your lap and stroke it. 1, 2, count 50 strokes. Learn some compassion and kindness for yourself. And that's where that all came from. It's the causes of it. And the causes of understanding the nature of the will, obviously, as I've told you, it comes when the will stops. It's just not there anymore. And that's what happens in those deep meditations. You can't do anything. Because there's no buttons on the computer anymore. There's nothing to press, there's nothing to turn, there's no handle left. And you're still fully aware, incredibly aware. Just imagine what that must be like. Imagine you're just sitting there, fully aware, and you can't do anything. It's kind of frozen. It's blissed out, you can't even think. How free you are. You want to get away from stuff and having to make decisions and do stuff. A lot of times people say, does I come to monastery for some peace, to get away from it all? One of the most important things to get away from is your will. I made a mistake there. I hope you actually caught it out. Your will. If it was your will, then it'd be hard to get rid of it. When you understand it's the will, and it's not you, you've got no control over it. Then you can actually put it down, let it go. You've got no responsibility to act on the will. Because of that, you're going really deep to the source of things, to the womb of things, which I often say, to the heart of things, where things are born. Where does your will come from? But it's not just the fact that understanding what the will is, it's also understanding if there is no will, there's no you behind things, what's the consequences of that? And one of the best similes which I gave about that, which it's been a while since I said this, as far as my memory goes, which is not as good as it used to be. Actually, I made a mistake again. It's not my memory. I don't own it. So this was the driverless bus simile. And that's, it's a really old simile, but I was really upset, I'm going to say that, because when I wrote that first book on the book on mindfulness, bliss and beyond, the editors of Wisdom publication said, "Oh, can we delete this story, please?" And what are you talking about? That's one of the best similes in the book. I absolutely refused. I said, who am I dealing with? They didn't get it. But that simile of the driverless bus, I found is again a lovely, easy way to understand what this will is and how this understanding of stream winning actually happens, what yonisa manasikara is. And this was the story of, like, very simple simile, like you're in a bus and you're sitting on your seat, and sometimes your bus driver drives through some beautiful territory, beautiful mountains and lakes and snowfields, if you like the snow like a good Norwegian should. Yeah? Okay, yeah. And you see this wonderful scenery, and your bus driver, as soon as you're enjoying the view, slams his foot down on the accelerator and speeds out as fast as it can. And every time you're in the toxic waste fields of life, what's a toxic waste field? You see these terrible, terrible situations, wars, death, tragedies, and then you'd ask your bus driver, obviously, please get out as soon as you can. And what does the bus driver do? Slams on the brakes and parks. And after a while you get so fed up with your bus driver, so fed up, never does what it's told, never is smart, never is wise, and you have to experience so much suffering as a result. So you realize, if you want to teach that bus driver a lesson, you've got to find the bus driver first of all. So the monastic life, the life of renunciation, is often searching for the bus driver. Who's responsible for all of this pain and suffering which you experience? For all the pain and suffering caused by others, caused by your own body, caused by Ajahn Brahm, caused by the weather, caused by I don't know who. So you've got to find that bus driver and teach him a lesson. And that's when, eventually, you find that bus driver. The cause, the source of the problem, the yoniso, manasikara, work of the mind which finds the origin of the problem. And when you find that bus driver, this is what happens. That's when you get this kind of another kind of shock, but very, very pleasant surprise. There's no one in the bus driver's seat. It is a driverless bus. And honestly, for those of you who first heard that simile, you know that I said that simile way before they had the concept of driverless cars. I should have actually, what's it called, patented that word. And then we wouldn't need to actually worry about any more funds for Bodhinyana Monastery or any other monastery or nunnery or anywhere in the whole world. But anyway, that was a long time ago. But it was a beautiful simile. You don't own the will. The will is not you. It's an empty seat. What's the result of that? The result is obvious. You go back to your seat and you stop complaining to a bus driver which doesn't exist. You stop saying, oh, get me out of this pain, this difficult situation. Get me into happiness and peace and bliss. You don't have any arguments. You don't kind of bend the truth. Oh, this is as good as it gets. You just shut up and be peaceful. You start to let go of wanting and ill will, which is two of the big hindrances. It's because of those hindrances, that's why you get restless. That's why you get tired. Goodness gracious, you use your brain so much. Sorry, I made another mistake. It's not your brain. It's that brain. You abuse your own body. So after a while, no ill will, no desires. How can you have desires? It's a waste of time. The will's not yours. You can't tell the will what to do. And you don't get tired because you're not using your mind or abusing it. You don't have sloth and torpor, restlessness. And the doubt disappears simply because at last you can see your own experience, real experience. You're not looking how I can get around this problem. You're not looking at someone to blame. You're not running around getting tired. You can see clearly. That's where wisdom comes from, with no doubt. You know, so many people think they're wise. Are they? So this is where we go to the source of things, the why. Then we can understand things so much, we can get some insight. It's important, always whatever is taught through meditation or through as Dhamma, check it out. It always has to concur with other parts of the Buddha's teachings. And a bit of the Buddha's teachings which I always respect was the fact that if insight seeing things clearly is the cause of stream winning. And you can't become a stream winner except with Yonisa Manasikara and words of another. How can you reconcile those two teachings? It must mean that Yonisa Manasikara, to really go to the source of things, to have the power of mind to do that, the hindrances, the 5 hindrances have to be weakened. Weakened so much that you can actually see the Dhamma yourself. That is the work of the mind which goes back to the source. You see that for yourself. How do you do that? And that's where I keep on saying, okay, you think I always have to mention jhana somewhere. Of course I do, because the Buddha always mentioned that. The only way to overcome the 5 hindrances for a while, long enough to see clearly, is through samadhi, through the stillness, through the jhana. Because you get that jhana, you can see clearly enough, and you can believe that. The hindrance of doubt is gone. The mind is still. You can go to the source of things. The origin, why? That's what happens. When the 5 senses disappear, really disappear, and all the thoughts of the 5 senses have disappeared, then you've just got this beautiful mind. Something which I was kind of half arguing about. It's all dukkha. It's all suffering. What happens when you get into deep meditations in a jhana? That's really blissing out. As I used to say, still say, the bliss of the jhanas is better than sexual intercourse. And this guy who was a heroin addict, I don't know how he managed to get a glimpse of a jhana. He said, I always kind of understood what you were saying, but to say it's more blissful and pleasurable than a heroin hit, I never believed I could say that, but he said it's true. So we're talking about dukkha. Of course it's dukkha. You're understanding the meaning of dukkha much, 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 much deeper than any other ordinary human being or even heavenly being. It's one of the reasons why I always liked Mara, the controller in chief of the universe. And that's just a name I give. I think it's good enough. That controller in chief can't find you if you're in jhana. Can't they find your body? Know what kuti you're in? But your mind is so still, it's in kind of a different place. Oh, right, different place. It's not in a place. It's where it can't be found. So all of this shows just how you go so deep to the origin of things, the cause of things. You get more information, more understanding, more depth. And when you have that sort of depth, if it's illness, disappointment, death, goodness gracious, how can honestly anyone be disappointed at death if they understand, what dies? It's not yours anyway, never was. If you can actually see that, not as a theory, but you've seen it, you know it. And it's the words of another as well. Another Aryan, but even the better than that, the words of the Buddha. That's why, thank you, monks, for teaching Pali. Thank you for teaching suttas. Thank you for emphasizing the importance of those suttas. So you can actually see them, read them, understand them. That's the best words of another you can ever read. the two reasons for being a stream winner. And when of course that happens, you understand what Buddhism really is. Deep meditations, letting go of, renouncing not just the worldly life, but renouncing seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. Renouncing them, they're not important anymore. So you sit down, be quiet, bliss out. Go to the realm of the mind, understand things like the doer and the knower as well. That's the other thing about the deep meditations. I rarely talk about that. That's why the immaterial attainments, those are stages where the mind disappears. The knower starts to go. Vanish. It's not there anymore. Vanishes bit by bit. You experience any of that. This is not what you have read, it's what you experience. Because not enough is written about those things. Because it's hard to find the language. But anyway, when it happens, then you're free. You are free. It doesn't make any sense saying you are free. Everything vanishes and disappears. So this is actually where the Yonisamanasikara and the Paratagosa, this is actually where you find freedom. When you first see that, obviously, that's becoming a stream winner. And later on, once you've seen it once, of course it's never forgettable, simply because it's powerful and it's a truth. And after a while, even though you may be busy, have lots of duties and services for others, nevertheless that's so powerful, eventually it grows on you so much that after a while that's how you look at the world, how you see it, how you feel it, how you know it. So it becomes not just an understanding, but a way of living, a way of disappearing, a way of vanishing from samsara. You weren't there anyway, so now you do go. Thank you for listening.
Sadhu, 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 anumodami.
Okay.
I've never heard of first time.
Really?
Quite written, I think.
Very visceral. Alahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Suwakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Sorry. Who's on top of that? Mr. Bhamali, when's a good time that the Sangha can actually bow to you?
Tomorrow morning, breakfast.
Tomorrow. If you're not going to be here tomorrow morning at breakfast, it's a good time to pay respects to Ajahn Brahmali, who will be going to the airport. They have a very early lunch.